Hello there, listeners. It's Susie New from the Australian Society of Anaesthetists, and welcome to episode 102 of the Australian Anaesthesia podcast. Thank you for joining me as I dive into the who, what, and how of some of the incredible people, the incredible talent in our community. I must admit, though, when I reached out to the guest in this episode, Dr Shari Hall, I didn't realise that she had stepped away altogether from her career as an anaesthetist. Sure, she is a successful singer, songwriter, author, actor and writer, but I initially was wondering how she balanced that with her anaesthetic career. So, when I learned during the course of our conversation that she had attended 2 Ivy League universities and become a cardiac anaesthetist, I was so intrigued by how she made the decision to leave anaesthesia altogether and how she went about it. Are you intrigued too? Great, well, let's get into it. Thanks so much for giving up some time today to have a chat with me on the podcast.
Hello, Susie. Thank you so much for the invitation, and it's a pleasure to be here.
You started out from an anaesthetic point of view, cardiothoracic anaesthetist.
That is correct.
And that was in the US?
That's correct, yeah.
Can you tell me about your journey to getting to that point in your career?
It was not an easy one. I can start with that.
Yeah, why? What was happening?
Well, okay, so I went to undergraduate at Yale University, which was probably one of the best 4 years of my life for so many different reasons.
Yale is an Ivy League university, so I presume quite competitive to get into.
Extremely.
Fantastic. Good on you.
Thank you. So when I attended Yale, I took the typical courses that any pre-medical student would take, but I also had a very deep love of theater and all things artistic. So the beautiful thing about Yale is it has something called the Yale Dramat, which people like Meryl Streep and, very famous actors have been there and performed there. So I actually got to do a lot of theater, even though I was studying
fantastic.
Biology and chemistry and psychology and a lot of other things. I did perform regularly when I was at Yale.
Amazing. Did you have crazy long, what we call contact hours at university? So our days was 8 till 5. And then you're juggling it with doing performances that finish late at night. Did you have that sort of experience as well?
Absolutely, but it was fantastic. I mean, the drudgery of going to class every day is one thing, but, being able to have that creative outlet, a lot of doctors have that right brain, left brain thing going on. It's a way for us to kind of meld the beautiful human experience together with what we're learning in a scientific manner. After Yale, I was accepted to Columbia University and I deferred. I took a year off and during that year I did theater.
Amazing.
I was on the stage and also directing and choreographing shows during the year I took off.
How did you get those opportunities to do those shows? Were you auditioning and then?
Yeah, absolutely. So Yale had its own massive theater community, but Columbia was in New York City. So they're all very big cities. They all have lots of universities, have lots of community and regional theater. So it's just a matter of finding where the other thespians are.
Yeah, wow, good on you.
So then I went to New York City and went to Columbia University. And the beautiful thing about the College of Physicians and Surgeons at Columbia is it has this spectacular thing called the P&S Club, the Physicians and Surgeons Club, which I very quickly became an officer of that club. It's essentially an extracurricular activities umbrella organization that houses more than 100 different student-run extracurricular programs. And of course, one of them was theater.
Yes. I see a theme here.
You do? So even throughout all of my years in medical school, one of the things that actually saved me, because as we all know, the rigors of medical school, but one of the things that saved me was my participation, my active participation not only as a member of multiple clubs within the PNS club, but also as an officer and a leader of the PNS club to encourage other medical students to live a more balanced life as they're going through the journey of trying to become doctors.
I really like that take on it, because often people will say, didn't it just make you busy? Weren't you already busy enough with all your studies? But in fact, sometimes you need that outlet. And as you say, that balance just saves you.
And interesting, now that I'm teaching, because I teach first and second year medical students, and now that I'm teaching, a big part of what I teach my students is self-care and learning how to manage their mental status, their spirituality, their physical bodies, their own health and well-being on the journey to becoming servants to the rest of the world and caring for others. Because if they don't take care of themselves first, and if they leave that part behind, which a lot of students do during that journey, half the time they end up broken before they even start their first day on the ward.
And you want to create resilient doctors, don't we? Yeah.
We do. And it's the one reason I love teaching. But then just quickly getting back to my journey at Columbia, very quickly found that I was a doer, that I liked procedures. I liked to get that immediate sense of gratification that I've done something well.
Yes.
And it was quite an easy decision for me to separate myself apart from the internal medicine or kind of the GP realm versus going into a surgical or surgical subspecialty.
A more procedural specialty.
Yeah. Anesthesia was actually a really fantastic fit for me in so many ways, because a lot of the anesthetists that I knew actually had a life outside of the operating theater.
Yes.
And for me, that was so important. And getting back to how I started this conversation, that this journey was extremely difficult for me because I think, well, I know now that authentically in my soul and my heart, I am a passionately creative person. And the rigor of going through university and then through medical school and then through internship and residency and fellowship, as I did for cardiac, really was completely soul destroying in so many ways.
Right.
And I felt like I had sacrificed so much of the creative passion that was inside me in order to pursue that career. Yes, I did my theater. Yes, I continued to play my music and write songs and, you know, fulfill that part of my life, but I wasn't living that.
Yeah, right.
And there's a whole lot of reasons for that. But at the end of the day, I was extremely good at what I did. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gone into cardiac anesthesia. It was an arduous journey. It took many, many, many years.
Yes.
And it took a lot of resilience and grit to maintain the everyday drudgery.
Yes.
I don't want to scare people away from becoming doctors and pursuing this most auspicious, amazing career, but it's not for the faint-hearted, right?
Yeah.
I think that one thing that we need to do, and I've thought about this for a long time, Susie, is I think that from day one, the day that a person, an individual decides they want to become a doctor, maybe that's when they're in 10th grade, maybe that's when they're in middle school. But I think from the day they make the decision to become doctors, it is important for us as educators and future nurturers of that soul deciding to go into that profession to start caring for them from the minute they make the decision, because it is a rigorous journey and we do want them to be well and whole at the outcome.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to figure out how that needs to happen. But I think from the beginning, we need to identify those students, talk to those students, give them a really clear understanding of the journey ahead of them, and then help them along that journey so that they can fulfill their dream of doing what they've been thinking of since they were a child.
I mean, you're right. It is just such an incredible journey when I reflect back on mine. And you think about the arduous nature in terms of more study, long hours.
Yeah.
I don't really, I think, consider when you're working in hospitals what that actually means in terms of working with other people's bodies.
That's right.
I remember I think I was an intern and I was just so delighted, you know, that time when you're asked to assist in surgery.
Yeah.
And you're just, this is amazing. You got to scrub in. And I remember I was there. It was a patient having a laparotomy,
Yeah.
and my arm was in this patient's abdomen almost up to the elbow. And I just had this sort of epiphany of, I'm really doing this.
Yes.
It's an incredible physical sensation to be having when you're not that old. It's not the usual things that people your age are experiencing physically.
Not at all. Not at all. And I think if we really think about that, and I have thought about this a lot.
Yeah, right.
Medicine, or let's say any service-oriented profession. I won't just say medicine, but obviously that's what we have experience in, right? But it could be paramedics, it could be nurses, it could be personal support care workers, anybody who's in a service industry to the care of others.
Yeah.
Medicine is a specialty that actually requires and condones the ongoing chronic and cumulative exposure to psychosocial hazards. Everywhere, all these other professions study it and they say, oh no, we have to minimize psychosocial hazards. We have to try to eliminate the risk. We have to be mindful of employee hours. We have to make sure that their working conditions are good, that they're working in a supportive team environment where they are cared for and not bullied, harassed, or discriminated against. I mean, the list goes on and on, not isolated, not exposed to traumas on a daily basis. But medicine is a career where going into it, we know with open eyes that on a daily basis for the next 40 years of our life, we are going to be exposed chronically and cumulatively to psychosocial hazards. And that's what I'm talking about when I say we need to identify and nurture and care for the souls who make the decision to embark on that journey. Because I don't actually know that we can change the system. I don't know that we can change how we teach medicine. It is rigorous. It does involve some of that exposure, like the military, right? The same sort of thing, right?
Exactly.
But it does come at a cost.
Well, I suppose it can do. I suppose, yeah.
And I would love to be able to figure out how to minimize that cost.
What point at your career were you when you decided to step away from anaesthesia?
I'd say I was at my peak earning potential. So I practiced for 22 years. So 22 years practicing in Australia and in America. I've done some international work as well in Guatemala and a couple other places, doing some medical mission trips, but primarily in Australia and America.
Yep.
But the truth is, Susie, from the day I became a doctor, I was already exiting medicine. Right. So I have to say, if I did it again, I would still choose anesthesia. I loved anesthesia. It was the perfect fit for me and for all the other dimensions of Shari. But it was at great personal sacrifice that I continued on that journey for as long as I did. Yeah. But just over 20 years, I made the decision after a couple major events happened in my life.
Yeah.
One, my mother passed away, and she died from right heart failure as a result of pulmonary fibrosis secondary to scleroderma.
Oh, geez.
So it was a very rapid decline for her. And she was at Cleveland Clinic, received exceptional care, but she was only 64, right? So she died young with a lot of regret, I think, and a lot of remorse that she didn't complete the things that she wanted to do in her life, that she didn't experience some of the things that she aspired to. So that was one thing that happened. Yeah. And the second thing that happened was I got divorced. I was married for 10 years to an Australian, and the same year that my mother passed away, I got divorced and was left caring solely for two beautiful girls who are now adults, but they were young at the time, 5 or 6 years old when we got divorced. So those two things happened back to back in my life. And it was at a point where prior to my mom dying, she had said to me, like, Shari, I just want you to be happy. When are you going to allow yourself to be happy?
Oh, wow. Oh, very poignant.
And it was like heartbreaking because, I was happy in that I was in a great career. I was an exceptional doctor. I was working all around the world in these very prestigious institutions. Yet she knew and she could see that my heart was just calling out to the creative world. So even after that, after she passed away, it took me still another 10 years. It was a very slow process of, becoming an independent contractor, working part-time, tailoring my career in anesthesia, which is the beauty of anesthesia, to the lifestyle that I desired. And ultimately it got to a point where I just made the decision, I'm done. I'm going to hang up my stethoscope, and I feel good about that decision. And it was almost like I can breathe now. I don't have to take someone's life in my hands 20 times a day anymore. I don't have to get somebody to sign a consent paper that says they could die under anesthesia.
That's one of the things I warn pre-vocational doctors when they're considering a career in anesthesia, is that it's great at the junior level. You have a consultant with you all the time who's helping you make decisions. But when you're on your own, you carry that responsibility for that patient. It's solely on you.
Yes.
And I know some people who've realised that a bit later in their training, in their career, and it's almost too late for them to step away, and they get nervous about what we take on in anesthesia. I can see how stepping away would just be a tremendous relief.
It was. And it's funny because my first husband, my Australian husband, he used to say to me, oh, it's just another day of work for you, Shari. What's the big deal? I'm like, oh, dear, you don't really understand what I do.
That's like 99% of the population.
And a lot of people actually really don't get what we do, right? They don't get that we are truthfully, honestly taking responsibility for their life, their tissue, their soul for whatever period of time, whether that's a, 10-minute cataract procedure or whether that's a 15-hour craniotomy.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm not negating the team. Obviously, being an anaesthetist involves working in a team environment. We can't do it alone. But in a way, you are the captain of the ship. Like the surgeon doesn't make an incision in the chest until I say it's okay. So I need to be happy that my patient's happy before anything else happens in theater. And that is a big responsibility, which again, Susie, sort of goes back to what I was saying before, that I would love for us to find a way to identify those students at an early age and go through some mental health screening with them, go through some psychometric testing. And once we identify them, then give them the strategies, the tools, and the coping mechanisms early on to help them be able to manage that stress so that they can enjoy what they do, so that they can have a fruitful, long career. We want our doctors to stay. We don't want people burning out, after 10 years or after 1 year. Yeah. I know some registrars who burn out after 1 year and they said, no, I'm out. I'm going to go do sexual therapy or something. I'm going to do something else. So.
I wanted to come back and ask you, because you mentioned when you decided to step away, you were at your peak earning potential. And I know from doctors who are considering side hustles or getting into something else, that's one of the biggest challenges.
It is.
Is that you're potentially stepping away from
a lot of money,
your current earnings, to less secure, especially if you're doing something like a creative outlet where you're not really sure that you'll be getting a regular income, let alone a good regular income.
That's right.
How did you manage that transition?
Yeah, that's a great question. Managing the transition from earning a very healthy 6-figure income to earning nothing, because the day I left and I hung up my stethoscope, I actually checked out for a year. I just gave myself some quiet time and, time to connect with the universe again. So what I did is I reevaluated my core values and beliefs as to what I actually required to be happy. This is deep and it goes back to childhood for me. I won't say I was poor, but we lived in relatively, not the greatest circumstances. We were on what we call food stamps and welfare in America, which would be on the dole here for many years. My mother was a single parent for many of my young years. It was not an easy childhood for me. So one of the reasons I went into medicine, and being perfectly honest, was because medicine was a prestigious career. It would give me financial stability, right? I'd be able to have a different life for my future children than the life that I had. So making the decision to step away, I had to really dive deep into my own core belief system and ask myself, after 20 something plus years in medicine, earning all that money, I still was not happy. So I had to dive deep inside me and my soul. It was a lot of conversations with God, the universe, whatever your source, energy, whatever you want to call it. But I had a lot of just still, quiet moments sitting on my rooftop, looking at this beautiful view in Australia that I had, and asking myself the question, what does it mean for Shari to experience joy, to have peace in her life, to live more in a state of flow, in a state of congruency with who I am authentically at my core? And did that actually require a 6-figure income?
Yeah.
Did that actually require that?
It can be quite scary looking at that question. Yeah.
Yes. And most people are afraid to do that, but I can help people do that. Give me a call. I will walk you through the process.
You have done it. Yeah.
Seriously. But after that year of kind of just sitting still and being a mom, really, I took that opportunity to go back to my children and be a mom, right? To really be present and accounted for them. But the first job that I took after that year of nothingness was working as a teacher assistant in the creative and performing arts department of the school that my children attended. I made minimum wage, $21 an hour. And the 2 years that I worked at Kappa, Creative and Performing Arts, at Nambour Christian College, it was, up here on the Sunshine Coast of Queensland, were 2 of the happiest years of my life.
Oh, well, that tells you something.
I was working in music and theater. I was teaching the choir. I was cleaning out brushes in the arts and crafts room, and people thought I was the cleaning lady.
Oh, but inside you're just jumping with joy.
It was amazing. It was so great. It was so wonderful. I was surrounded by beautiful humans studying the creative arts. I saw my kids every single day. I was signing out film and television equipment to them and say, hey, honey, you want to come to me, kiss? How are you? And being so happy, like a little duck in a pond for the first time that they're learning how to swim.
Oh, amazing.
And I was making $20-something an hour.
Yeah.
So, mind you, I'd had a career of 22 years earning a 6-figure income. I did have some savings. I wasn't, I didn't spend everything I earned. So I had the privilege of being able to do that. But even so, I mean, how long can you do that and not very quickly see a decline in the savings accounts?
Exactly. Yeah.
When you're accustomed to living a certain lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was frightening. But remember, the same adrenaline, right, is the same thing that you experience with fright or excitement. And so once again, for me, it was about reframing what was happening to me. Yes, I was scared and I was frightened about the future. But when we're thinking about the future, we're thinking about something that doesn't actually exist yet. Yeah. So I had to try to bring myself back in the present moment and understand that same drug in my body was actually causing me to be excited and interested and curious and, giving me a vibrancy and a brilliance that I hadn't shown the world in so many years. And the people that I was working with were super cool. I mean, hey, they were all thespians and, into the arts and the visual arts and the creative arts and music and drama. And I was like, happy clam.
Oh, it sounds like it.
It was a dream.
I wanted to also, because I know we get a lot of queries from people from overseas who want to work in Australia.
Yes.
You said you started out, first of all, working between the US and Australia.
Yes. My first point of entry to working in Australia from America was working at the Cairns Base Hospital. So I was up in Far North Queensland.
Lovely, yeah.
But at the time, I found a company called Global Medical Staffing. I actually don't even know if they exist anymore. They probably do. But global medical staffing, they basically found jobs for you in different countries around the world. And I specified an English-speaking country, and they found a 9-month position at the Cairns-based hospital, which at that time was an area of need. So they took care of everything. They took care of my visa. They took care of my registration with APRA and Australian Medical College.
Wow.
I was a deemed specialist because it was an area of need. So at that time, I did not have to take my fellowship exam. I had already done that in America. So that's how I first came to Australia. As it happened, during that year, I met this very handsome, sexy Australian, as you do.
Yeah. Yes.
And decided to get married, go figure. Yeah. and so then I extended my trip and ended up staying for a full year. And then we went back to the United States after that for me to actually earn some dollars, because at that time in Australia, I still had quite a lot of debt from medical school student loans and things.
Yeah.
And the US dollar was twice the Australian dollar at that time.
Yes.
So me making Aussie dollars for a year did not help me pay off my student loans. So we went back to the States for a period of time so I can make the big bucks and pay off that debt quite quickly then.
And then in terms of coming to Australia on a more permanent basis.
Yes. So because I was now married to an Australian and we had 2 children who were also dual citizens of both Australia and America, and I was a specialist, right? I was a consultant anaesthetist. It was not difficult actually for me then to get permanent residency. Having said that, I know that a lot of people go through quite a difficult immigration process, but I did not. I had fantastic credentials. I'd already worked in the public healthcare system. I was willing to work in the public healthcare system again.
Ticked a lot of boxes.
It was a pretty seamless procedure for me. It was, filling out paperwork, filling out the forms, and doing what we doctors are used to doing.
I think you've landed in one of the most beautiful parts of the world.
I love working in Australia. There's so many beautiful things about the Australian healthcare system that I wish the rest of the world would think about. I mean, it has its flaws, right?
There's no perfect system, that's sure.
Nothing is perfect, but I feel very, very blessed and very privileged to be an Australian citizen. I love Australia and where we live. You are absolutely right. The Sunshine Coast is pretty close to paradise.
Stunning.
I mean,
Yeah.
It's a beautiful part of the world. I will never leave.
And I wanted to just finally ask, even though you say you've hung up your stethoscope, I don't know how long it's been since you've given an anaesthetic, you're still involved with the medical community.
Absolutely. So I teach first and second year medical students at Griffith University School of Medicine and Dentistry. Their main campus is on the Gold Coast, but we do have a satellite campus here on the Sunshine Coast. So I primarily teach clinical skills, which involves communication skills, which is my absolute favorite, but also physical examination skills and procedural skills. So, which of course is very congruent with being an anaesthetist. That is the right field for me to be teaching through. But I do think that I bring a slightly different dimension to my teaching. I am a multicultural woman. I have grown up in a different medical educational system. I am a creative artist and a singer-songwriter and a writer. And I think I really do bring that humanistic element to being a doctor. And I think with AI and with technology and with humans doing less and less and less because AI can do more and more and more and more, it is so, so very important for young physicians to remember that there will never be a computer or a machine that can replace the relationship that you develop with your patient. And I stress that, and it's important because people have a lot of fear about AI and technology. But at the end of the day, we are humans taking care of other humans, and we need to remain human, and we need to remain empathic. We need to remain compassionate, and we need to actively listen to what our patients are saying. We need to have our patients engaged and involved with their health care.
I saw an interesting article the other day that said that AI might actually help us do that.
Yes, And I could see that.
And it might make all the technological aspects much more efficient so that we do have more time to be more human with our patients.
Yes, getting rid of those mundane tasks.
That would be a very positive influence of AI if that were to be the case, and I certainly hope it would be. Yeah. I wanted to ask, how did you get into your university role?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I started as a sessional, so casual employment. I'm not really sure how it happened because at the time, I had just finished a professional musical theater tour around Australia and was trying to think about, okay, am I going to audition for another show? Am I going to audition for some commercials? I got a couple little movie spots and stuff like that. But I also felt like I really wanted to give back in some way. And I thought that teaching would be the best way to do that. So as you do, started just to look for things, Indeed and Seek and, look up the local universities here and see if there was any casual teaching that I can do, including things like TAFE or first aid, CPR, whatever.
All good ideas.
And I came across, expressions of interest for sessional casual teaching at the medical school at Griffith and applied for that and was instantly called by the head of the program there, who was Jen Williams. So I became a sessional, which meant, for those who don't know what that means, it's just casual work where you fill in and you take on different subjects and you just go and teach and then maybe have some assessment and marking, but you're not involved in the academia of the university. So I ended up starting by teaching PBL, which is problem-based learning, and some communication skills and physical examination skills. That quickly led, though, to me doing a lot of other things. I was teaching into anatomy. I was teaching into team-based learning. Within a year, I was teaching across 5 different subjects. So I was almost working full-time as a sessional. And then a position did become available for the senior lecturer in clinical skills, which I applied for and got.
Do you need to maintain your APRA registration to teach at medical school?
No. So I am not actively practicing and I am no longer registered with APRA because I'm not practicing clinically. And in fact, though, in clinical skills, we do have a very, very good relationship with our clinicians in the hospital, which is right next door to the Sunshine Coast Health Institute. So we have many, many active clinicians who come and teach into clinical skills, either as academic title holders or as sessionals as well, who come and teach our students.
Yeah, nice. Well, look, it's just been wonderful chatting with you this morning/afternoon. Thank you so much for your time. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to say either to the anaesthetists who listen to the podcast or people maybe thinking of changing careers?
Yeah, I want to say 2 things. Number one is that I also own a magazine. I own Matters magazine on the Sunshine Coast, which is a business magazine, which is probably my primary focus outside of the university. But it allows me to maintain my creative self. I get to write on a daily basis. I'm writing articles about business owners. So that's a beautiful thing for me. I still get that human contact. What I would say to people who are currently in anesthesia or possibly considering a career change, either or, it doesn't really matter. Anesthesia is a great specialty. It is a great specialty. It is one of the few specialties where you can actually tailor your life as a clinician to the life that you would like to have outside of being that clinician, to have a whole and balanced life. In anesthetics, you can work at a tertiary care hospital, you can work in intensive care. You can also work at an ambulatory surgery center that's doing endoscopies all day. You can work at a plastic surgeon's office. You can deviate and go into pain medicine. There's so much variety in our profession and our specialty that it really would be a shame to not take advantage of the flexibility that we have. We don't have to leave anesthetics to change our career path in anesthesia. And that is not true for a lot of other specialties. So we are truly blessed that we have the options of kind of crafting our career path to support us in a way that allows us to be whole human beings.
Yeah.
If you are struggling with being a full-time anaesthetist, if you are thinking, what else? There's something else that I'm meant to be doing. I feel like there's some calling inside me. Number one, get in touch with me. I can help you with that. I'm actually writing a book about it. But number two, allow yourself to acknowledge those feelings and go for it. Like absolutely fill your cup You will be a happier anaesthetist. You will take better care of your patients. You will be better within your family and your co-working environment if you feel that you are fulfilling your authentic purpose on this planet. And that authentic purpose does not have to be the career path that you chose with all the expectations that society is throwing at you as a result of being that person, that Dr. Shari Hall. Go for it. Give yourself permission to dissociate for just a minute from all the external influences in your life. The money, the house, the obligations, the societal norms, the expectations of what success means or doesn't mean, and allow yourself to tap into who are you authentically at your core? What makes you smile? Revisit your childhood. Ask yourself, what made me happy, and laugh. And when's the last time you laughed like uncontrollably and you felt that sense of joy and ease and flow in your life? And allow yourself to tailor your anesthetic career to do that thing. You will be a happier individual and feel more fulfilled and at peace with yourself and be a better human for those around you as well. Your patients, your family, your loved ones, your church community, whatever, if you fill your cup too and you find that joy within yourself.
Very poignant words there. I think that will really speak to some people I know in our communities. So you never know, we might find that we are putting you in contact with anaesthetists who are going through that process.
Yeah, I'm easy to find.
Oh, look, it's just been wonderful chatting with you. It's been really lovely getting to know you.
Anytime.
And just sharing some of your great ideas. So thank you very much.
You're so welcome, and thanks for the honor. And to the audience, do you. Okay, take care of yourself.
Well, I hope you enjoyed hearing from Shari as much as I enjoyed chatting with her. She certainly walks the walk when it comes to living life authentically. I really like the part when Shari says that one of the things that saved her through med school was her active participation, not only as a member of various clubs, but also as an officer and leader of the club. So if you're ever considering it, then I encourage you to get involved. Through my various roles with the ASA, the AMA, I am constantly meeting people who are surprised to find out how much they enjoy that active participation, that being involved, being a leader. And that's something I want to explore in future podcasts because I know many of you have quite significant side interests that take a lot of time and commitment and perhaps a little bit of money or even bring a little bit of stress as well. And each time I learn about people's side interests, I'm surprised by how much it influences them as anaesthetists. Because, of course, it shapes who we are as humans. And, of course, we're going to bring that into our work. So I want to explore, as Shari puts it, that life we have outside of the operating theatre. Which makes me ask, does this apply to you? Do you have a life outside of the operating theatre? I hope so. Whether it be something simple like friends, family, enjoying cooking and eating together, that's a really important balance to maintain. But if you do have something a bit different or have something that you're passionate about, then I'd love to hear about it. Feel free to quietly drop me an email. It's podcast@asa.org.au. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. And there's probably every chance I'll ask if you want to chat about it with me on the podcast. But don't worry, you can say no. I'm just genuinely a curious person. Also, if you are thinking of pursuing a side interest or just trying to juggle life and work and trying to squeeze all your interests in and you want to be put in contact with Shari, then please also do get in contact with me. Or as she points out, she is easy to find on social media, but sometimes an introduction doesn't hurt either. Before I sign off, I wanted to share a resource with you. It just came up, so I've kind of re-recorded this outro to fit it in, but it was just such a great video. I found it really moving and I thought it really fitted in with what we've been talking about. And I hope Shari doesn't mind that I've added it to our podcast. Quite coincidentally also, she mentioned that her mother was in Cleveland Clinic towards the end of her life. And this is actually a video that's been made by Cleveland Clinic. It's about empathy. I hope that you do click on the link. I'll put a link to to it in the show notes. I do hope that you click on it and watch it. And I did come across it, I have to admit, as part of a leadership subject that I am taking. And we've been asked how we might incorporate some of the impact from this video into our interactions with patients. Full kudos to Dr. Wilton Levine and the team from Harvard for sharing this resource and asking these really pertinent questions too. All right, until the next time, I hope you're staying curious, and of course, I hope that you and your patients are staying safe and well out there.
This has been Australian Anaesthesia, produced by the Australian Society of Anaesthetists, with many thanks to host and editor Dr. Susie New, with music by Soda Lime Music, sound and engineering by Bearview, and graphics by the ASA Communications team. For more content, please visit www.asa.org.au.